Well, hello everybody, it's Ildi here and this is the Bubble Tea Squad channel. Well, as you've seen in the previous video, we are going to try something new today, which is that I'm going to show you what I do in my daily life because I cook Korean basically 2-3 times a week. And this is going to be a special occasion. The last time the video that I showed you was about a very popular dish, a very popular stew. But today we are going to go to a different direction because this is going to be a vegan temple food. By the way, this is very much my actual kitchen, so you are getting a very honest experience. Few things to know about Korean temple cuisine, and this is in no way like an educational video or something. But before we can do any change to the traditional recipe, which we usually do on this channel, because unfortunately I'm in a different country and some ingredients are not available, we have to know a couple of basics and basic rules to do temple food properly. Takeaway number 1. Korean temple food uses very special ingredients. Actually, as far as I've read, Korean temple food varies from temple to temple. It comes from Buddhist traditions, therefore it has a very rich history, and it also uses local and sustainable ingredients, so it absolutely makes sense that it would vary from temple to temple, right? But that does mean that we might not have all the ingredients that we have described in a recipe. But that doesn't mean we cannot experiment. But there are a few things that you have to make sure that you keep when you are trying to make vegan Korean temple food. Number 1, it is very much vegan. For example, when I looked into the ingredients, unfortunately I do not have grain syrup, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find it in the shops here in Hungary. So what I tried to do instead, I checked what are the other sweetener options that are vegan. Honey, not allowed. Maple syrup, on the other hand, it's okay. Rule number 2. According to Buddhist traditions, there are certain ways in which one has to live. So it would make sense that obviously the appetite, the diet, works around those values. When I first looked into recipes, I found it scary at first. Unfortunately, most of it don't use my favorite ingredients, which is garlic and onions. But that shouldn't stop us from making Korean vegan temple food. One would assume that without those basic ingredients that we all consider very much the ground of Korean cooking, Korean temple food might come across as a bit of bland, but it's actually quite the opposite, and I will show you how. With those in mind, we are going to have a recipe with a bit of a twist. I will try my best to keep those values of vegan temple food from Korea, which are sustainable, local, and they are in harmony with nature. So we shall see how it goes. But before we can do anything, if you're like me, the first thing that you have to do is dye your hair. Right? Because, you know, our temple food might taste more interesting with mushroom in it, but I'm pretty sure it won't taste better with hair in it. So that's the first step. Okay, so this looks about right. Let's get the ingredients. So as you can see, I prepared all the ingredients and I prepared some extra stuff as well. Now that we are roasting all our sesame seeds, we have some different type of mushrooms because we love mushrooms in this household. And this one is imported, but this one is local. So we are trying to keep the spirit of Korean vegan temple food. Unfortunately, we don't have fresh rice flakes here, so just use something that you can find in your local supermarket. But one thing is for sure, these can definitely be found in Hungary, which has the same continental climate than Korea has, so that's actually really good. And then we have the cabbage as well here, prepared just like in Korea, and the sliced pumpkins. The special ingredients that I'm going to use are actually pumpkin, which I already sliced. I always found that Korean cooking has a very vibrant color scheme, especially when it comes to tteokbokki and like the stuff with chili and all the vegetables and everything, but it has sort of like a toned down feel to it. So it is vibrant, but it basically does not poke your eye when it comes to the visuals. And when I was looking into this recipe, I found it very much just, in like harmonious, like in with the nature, but I wanted to give it a bit of a pop. So that's why I decided to use something that has a bit of a color in it, just like we have pumpkins, which I'm going to make even more colorful when I use some steaming. When we are using pumpkins, obviously obviously we have a lot of leftover, right? But it would be so bad to throw it away, and I think this is not what Korean temple food is about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of the seeds and make it toasted beforehand. First of all, when you clean the pumpkin, you have to make sure that you clean it thoroughly, and then you have to dry it on just like a normal cloth or something. And once it's all laid out beautifully like this, you have to put some salt on it and turn the oven up to 400 Fahrenheit or 200 Celsius and just roast it for 20 minutes. So the goal is to make it slightly brown, but definitely not burnt. And this is going to be something that we are going to use to sprinkle it over the dish and just make it more appetizing. So there is one other thing that we have to toast before we start, just so we have it ready. And that's no other than the sesame seeds, which I have prepared here. Yeah, and actually this is the easier one. Basically you just have to put it into very, very high heat, and you have to put it into the pan and then wait and move it around till it gets a bit browner, and like literally that's it. Actually you can already smell the roasted sesame seeds, so while I'm preparing this, occasionally I'm gonna move around and just give it a bit of move. Oh, it's burning already! Look! Whoa, it's getting brown. Oh, Jesus, the heat, it's beautiful. So guys, I already have a bit of update to give you. So far, the toasting is not going as planned because it's just suddenly started popping out, meaning the pumpkin seeds. Look, it already ended up here. Wow, no! What is this? Okay, maybe I have to do it slightly differently. Well, the sesame seeds are beautiful. Okay, look, it's brown, it's golden, absolutely perfect. The pumpkin seeds, however, are not. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try a different method and take it out very quickly. Okay, well, let's give it a taste. I mean, it tastes nice. It tastes totally fine. But I think I'm going to roast it the old way. Okay, well now the pumpkin seeds are toasting. What we're going to do, I'm going to cut all the ingredients according to the recipe. Let's do it quickly. Guys, by the way, this was the same method that I used for the pumpkin. So I'm gonna use it in very, very thin parts like this. I recently broke my arm and it's quite hard for me to cut. So I'm gonna show you a method which can help you if your arms is slightly weaker than it used to be. So you have to use your left arm, in case my right elbow was broken, you have to use it to push down and help with the weight. See? Basically, oh, this is very hard. So what you do is you just place the knife and then use this hand. Push it down. There you go. So, and this will help you to not to use your right arm that much. So if you have a smaller pan, it makes sense to cut it in 1, 2, 3 parts so it can actually fit. Guys, in the meantime, our pumpkin seeds are getting ready and I think this is finally working. So let's take a look. Whoa! This looks perfect. Everybody, mission accomplished. Pumpkin seeds are done. Woohoo! And it's still sizzling. Because we love mushrooms in this household, I decided to add a bit of extra. And this one, as I told you, is a local one. And this one I got from an Asian supermarket. What can be really important with mushrooms, however, that they have a lot of moist inside of them. So when you're looking into stir fries, you have to be careful with the mushrooms that you are using, because you could be just gobsmacked by the amount of moist that is coming out of it, and it could kind of ruin the consistency of your dish. You have to make sure that you are stir frying it according to its texture. What I actually do most of the time is that I prepare different cuts, not just one type of cut according to the recipe, so it can be kind of more interesting when it comes to the display. Guys, I actually have another surprise for you, because I looked at the recipe which also used perilla oil. Perilla is a version of like Korean mint. Basically, this is how they most of the time describe it. And I couldn't find perilla oil. What I had, however, thanks to my awesome friend Bongsu Park, who is an amazing visual artist, lives in London, but she's Korean. She actually gifted me a perilla plant, which I was growing with love for months. So now, because unfortunately now they are all gone, I still have some perilla left in my fridge, which I made pickled perilla of. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use that pickled perilla oil that I already prepared in the fridge. And I'm also going to put the recipe in the description of how I made it. It does not look as appetizing as it should be, but I promise you that it's actually a delicious pickled dish. Make sure you have all the ingredients ready. The cabbage, the radish, in my case, all the different mushrooms. And for the display, we have 2 different types of toasted seeds that we did ourselves. The green onions as well. And to give it a bit of color, pumpkins. Rice cake. Because I'm not so good with cooking chopsticks yet, I usually use both. So cooking chopsticks and just something regular. And put it on medium heat. And cabbage. We might have some cabbage left, but that's perfectly okay. Let's see. The radish. It smells a bit savory and also a bit sour, so it's quite interesting already. Let's put the soy sauce in. It's at 2 tablespoons, so that's about okay. So just to ensure that this recipe isn't ruined, I'm gonna do a bit of a cheating, and I'm gonna not entirely stir fry it, but put something on top so it gets a bit cooked, because the radish should be cooked. So this looks about right. Let's see. Okay, so we have to take it to the next step, which is going to be adding the rice cakes. Very much stir frying in progress. Now it's time to add all the remaining ingredients. The pepper and the sweetener and some of the sesame seeds, which I'm going to add to a different dish as well. So the ingredients are all done, the food is done. So now we have one thing left to do, which is to display it as nice as possible. So when our loved ones come home, they can also enjoy the food tremendously. So we can make it into a bibimbap style. Well guys, this is actually a very, very fast dish, but we took quite a time to make it. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned a lot. But we used a bit of a twist and made it very much our own. Look! So, now that we've done this together, I hope you enjoyed the video and let's cook together next time. Bye!